So can we use persuasion or other tips you might have for us to help change other people's perspective so we're kind of on the same page?
That is a really good question.
Thank you.
For the longest time, I spent so much energy and effort on changing other people's perspectives. You can even argue that the book we just wrote is for that purpose.
Right.
But I did this because I saw life as a bunch of people interacting with one another. And if we didn't like another person's perspective, we should just change it. Go convince them, argue them down, club them into submission with our words, make sure they buy into our agenda.
I mean, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound very nice.
No, but that's how I saw life.
Right.
If my mom didn't agree with me, I would argue with her. If my brothers and sister didn't agree with me, I would argue with them. If my clients didn't agree with me, I would argue with them.
Mm.
Then I would make pages of essays and content and memes to convince people and persuade them to see things my way.
Mm.
But eventually, I learned to see life a different way. What if life isn't a bunch of people interacting with one another and trying to club and convince each other into our own agendas? What if instead life is a game with 8 billion players and all of those players are at different levels of consciousness? And so because they have different levels of consciousness, their consciousness stat might be lower or higher than other players, so be it. A player of very high consciousness is going to have difficulty relating to or partying up with lower consciousness players.
Okay.
They're not anywhere on the same sphere. Like they're not even on the same planet. Like they're totally different players in the game.
Yeah.
One is doing circles around life and like understands a million perspectives and they're great at this.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is struggling to change any perspectives and almost can't even see if they need to change a perspective, and they're just at a different level of consciousness. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The game doesn't judge. The game doesn't say like, oh, all of you should be pro players by now. The game is just like, cool, wherever you're at, no big deal. Live your life, do your thing, understand as much as you can understand, and change as many perspectives as you can manage. So be it. That's fine. You're allowed to play the game that way. You're allowed to be a beginner at life. You're allowed to not be the world's best human, right? And it's weird for someone who might be further along in the game or might have different perspective stats and so on to try to come down and just convince them all and make them all into pro players immediately.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons I think that you always say, like, everybody has their own timeline and everybody's on their own pace, right? Well, this makes sense. So just to make sure I understand, when I'm talking to somebody like family members of mine who maybe don't understand things the same way I do, it's not very helpful to try to convince them or turn them to my side because I'm a level 25 and she's a level 2, but that's okay.
Yeah, and this is just a metaphor. I don't want to have everyone running around judging their family as worse or better. I'm just saying it's an example of how you can see life in a different way,
right,
and in a healthier way where you don't try to make all the other players play the way you do or make them be at your level. You wouldn't want someone else who's further along to come down and do that to you. It would feel weird and pressury. Yeah. And they're like, why aren't you a billionaire, dude? You got to change all your perspectives. You should be a billionaire by now. It's like, whoa, man. Like, I'm on my own journey. I don't think I'm ready for that. But if they're so excited to share their perspectives, like, you see how awkward it can get when we're all trying to convert one another to our own views.